right. So let's continue. Of course, taking a moment to renew our motivation, to remind ourselves why we're doing this. The motivation should be that not only do we want to learn about the 12 links in order to liberate ourselves, but more than that, to attain the fully enlightened state of a Buddha, which enables us to be of greatest benefit to other sentient beings. Since then we're able to work towards freeing them, that is, guiding them in their own effort to overcome their problems and overcome all their limitations, and in that way leading them to the enlightened state of Buddhahood. Okay, so with this motivation, let's then continue with the topic of the 12 links. I hope I was able to answer Ikki's question. Where's Ikki? Is he here? I can't see Ikki.
Yeah. I'm
Are you there? Oh yeah. Ikki, did I answer your question? Oh, there you are.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, I did. Great. Now I want to answer Varda's question, which is important, especially in the context of causes and effects. I mean, you've probably gathered by now that it's extremely important to understand, well, cause and effect. It's the foundation of Buddhist understanding, in particular when it comes to impermanent phenomena, anything that is impermanent. So understanding impermanence in connection to cause and effect. In that, when we say things are changing moment by moment, well, that happens in the context of an earlier moment. So anything that exists, don't think of it as a singular object, but rather as a continuum. It's not an unchanging solid thing, although we're not aware of its constant changing nature. So the fact that the objects around us made of atoms, of course, these atoms are in constant movement, in constant change. I mean, they're constantly changing just in terms of their position, in terms of their, well, chemical substances that are changing and new atoms coming together. Of course, the table is aging because from moment to moment, because of the substances having come together to form the table. Well, they're being in a constant change and moving towards the end of this table. And the same, of course, is true as us human beings. Our body is constantly changing. Our mind is too. Therefore, understanding any phenomenon, first of all, in the form of a continuum. Then also understanding that that continuum is made up of course, different moments, as I just said, with earlier moments serving as the causes or the cause of later moments. So in this case, you have a continuum, and any earlier moment, which then transforms into a later moment, is a cause, and not just a cause, but a substantial cause of its later moment, which in other words means a cause just means it is responsible by changing itself. Its own change enables another phenomenon to come into existence. So in this case, it's the transformation of an earlier moment into a later moment. And based on that transformation, we call the later moment result of the earlier moment, which is its cause. Very important, because I bring in also, we label it, we call it such, which is, of course, pointing out that with regard to the 12 links, well, these are the conventional, these are seen from a conventional point of view. Of course, there's also the ultimate 12 links, if you like, understanding that there's no inherently existent ignorance, which gives rise to a non-inherently existent formative actions and so forth. So we should not ignore, of course, the ultimate existence of phenomena, that they are merely labeled on the basis of something. So ignorance is labeled on the basis of something that is not ignorance, on the basis of sub-moments, which in and of themselves, these subtle moments the mind is made of, plus the different qualities of the mind, the object of the mind. None of those are ignorance, but labeled on the basis of all these, we then label ignorance. Therefore, that's the ultimate from the ultimate point of view. And of course, part of the 12 links is this is the working of causes giving rise to results. And as I just mentioned, if you have a continuum, then the earlier moment of the continuum, its transformation gives rise to a later moment of the continuum, and that later moment is called the effect, and the earlier moment is called the cause. And that is also described as the substantial cause. So that is a substantial cause, and it doesn't mean main cause. It doesn't mean main cause. It can be its main cause as its substantial cause, but it doesn't have to be. In other words, there can be another cause that is not a substantial cause, that is, its transformation doesn't transform. If there's a cause that doesn't transform it into a particular result, still it can be the main cause of that result. So there's no contradiction. Substantial cause only means that the substantial cause of something is that which has become that something. So like a seed that transforms to become an apple tree, for instance. So of course, it's not that they're not new particles that have been added to it, but it's that original seed that has actually transformed to become a tree. So in that way, the seed is the substantial cause of the tree. Likewise, the mind of this life, the first moment of your consciousness at the time of birth or at the time of name and form, depending on which aspect, which part of the 12 links you're looking at. Now, with regard to that first moment of conception, that first moment of consciousness, its substantial cause is a former moment of consciousness. And it's part of this continuum of mind. And therefore, you always have a substantial cause. Everything, there must have been a former moment where a certain substance, whether physical or non-physical, some entity has transformed to now become the present moment being the first moment of consciousness that is now connected with the fertilized egg. And that previous moment of consciousness is not the consciousness of the parents, because it's not like a part of their consciousness becomes our consciousness. That would mean the whatever is part of that consciousness, or we would be the mental result of our parents, as in like whatever mental faculty they have that should be found within us, and that's not true. Mentally, it can be totally different. The same kind of knowledge is not there, simply because it's a subtle type of mind that enters this fertilized egg with just imprints from previous lives, but the knowledge from previous life, that's no longer there, and just the imprints being there with this mental consciousness, which then of course develops again to be its own mental stream. So it's not the stream of our parents, and it's definitely not being created by the body, since a body cannot create a mind, and a mind cannot create physical objects. I mean, the mind is also a mental consciousness, cannot serve as the substantial cause that is transformed to become something physical. That's impossible. It can only be a cause. It can be a main cause, cannot be a substantial cause. So this, we have to understand this difference. That's also part of Varda's question to describe here main substantial cause and cooperative conditions. So anything that doesn't transform to become the result, but still affects this result, as in like being a cause of that result, but although it does transform, anything that serves as a cause has to transform itself, has to change itself to affect something, to serve as a cause of something, and thereby affect something. But that doesn't mean it itself becomes that result, but rather it becomes a different result. But in that process of becoming some different result, being the substantial cause, therefore, of a different result, it can also serve as the cooperative condition of, again, another phenomenon. In the case of, for instance, the farmer that sows a seed in the ground, that is the cooperative condition of this particular seed, which grows in a particular place because the farmer chose to plant it there. The farmer is the cooperative condition of that seed, but the farmer does not transform into the apple tree. The farmer doesn't transform into the apple tree. The farmer transforms into a later moment of a farmer. But nonetheless, it serves as the cooperative condition of, well, the apple tree. First the seedling, then the growing tree, and basically then the apple tree that holds lots of apples, that has lots of apples. So it's the cooperative conditions of those and the substantial cause of it's the cooperative condition of the apple tree and the substantial cause of something else. And the cooperative condition of many other things. But the substantial cause only of its later continuum. And in that way, whatever exists is the substantial cause of its later continuum and the cooperative condition of various other things. In that way, phenomena are connected in that cause and effect relationship. I mean, even us as human beings, an earlier moment of yourself has an effect on me. An earlier moment of myself has a moment later an effect on you. I mean, just having a conversation, I say something that has an effect on you. You say something that has an effect on me. And so in that way, of course, not simultaneously, because you're saying something only affects me a moment later. So a cause has to precede its effect. But we can be each other's cooperative conditions. In fact, we are, even in the situation we're in right now. Without you, I wouldn't be talking. Without me, you wouldn't be listening to what I say. Therefore, you're the cooperative cause of me teaching, and I'm the cooperative cause of you listening to me. So there's this back and forth, basically, acting as each other's cooperative conditions. Cooperative conditions. Now, in general, the word cause in Tibetan, it's gyu, cause. And a cooperative condition is a cause, and a substantial cause is a cause. But you'll find sometimes in Buddhism, when a particular word has a general meaning, that meaning can change if it is paired up with something else. Oftentimes, when it's paired with another word, its meaning can slightly change. To give you an example, cause and condition. Cause in itself includes any cause, any condition, cooperative condition, substantial cause. It includes all of those. But when you say cause and condition, you pair it with condition, then cause usually means substantial cause and condition means cooperative condition in that context. But only if you use cause and condition. If you use cause in itself, then it covers all conditions too. So the cause of the pair cause and condition refers to substantial cause. But when I don't pair it with condition, the way I express it, if I just say cause, then also cooperative conditions are causes. Substantial causes are causes. This is very typical. For instance, when you take person, self, and phenomena. The self is a phenomenon. So phenomenon is this category that covers everything that exists. It also covers the self, of course. The self, a conventional self, of course, exists. The self, therefore, exists. There is a self. There's a labeled self. So the self exists and phenomena exist. And phenomena is the category that includes anything that exists, therefore also the self. But when I say self and phenomena, then phenomena take on a different meaning. It means all phenomena other than the self, which is why when you talk about selflessness of the self or emptiness of the self, that includes just selves, the emptiness of a self. And then when I say emptiness of phenomena, that includes all phenomena other than the self. You see, this is how words in certain combinations put together with pairs take on a different meaning. It's just, if you remember that, you hear it once, you hear it twice, you can easily remember that. Or object and subject, like mind and object. Of course, the mind is also an object of some mind. Every mind can be perceived by another mind. But when I say object and mind, object and consciousness, then object is, in particular, it's not consciousness itself. It always refers to the object of that is not a consciousness that is perceived by another mind. Okay, and then consciousness is that which, although it's perceived, but it's not seen as object in that context. It just depends on that pairing. Okay, therefore, a cooperative condition is a cause. Even a condition, it's a condition. A cause and condition are same thing. Cause and condition. They're just different words for the same thing. A condition is a cause is a condition. But when they're paired together, when they're not used just saying, oh, a substantial cause is a condition, yes. A cooperative condition is a condition, yes. Or a cooperative condition is a cause, and a cooperative condition is and a substantial cause is a cause. That's when they're not paired together. But of course, if I pair them together, as I said early on, it means substantial cause and cooperative condition. Right away, we recognize that relationship, or these two. Okay, that's one aspect. But of course, it's depending on what causes and conditions create, there are more functions, there are more divisions in that way, because we give different causes different names based on the different functions they perform. So we can add another label, an uncommon or unique cause, like an uncommon cause. For instance, we take the sense power, the I sense source, or as it's also called, the I sense power. So whatever you need to give rise to an I consciousness on a physical basis, that is the uncommon condition. It's the uncommon condition because of the immediately preceding condition, another type of consciousness, and an external object, such as a table. It is uncommon in that it's unique in that it creates only an I consciousness. In other words, the eyes, the optical nerve, the part of the brain, everything that is responsible for seeing an object is unique in that it creates an I consciousness. It does not create an ear consciousness. It does not create a nose consciousness. The immediately preceding condition can be any type of mind, and it's not unique in that the immediately preceding condition. So for instance, when we are asleep at night, okay, when you're asleep at night, there's no sense consciousness. There's only the mental consciousness that goes through the different stages of sleep: deep sleep, dream stage, etc. Then when you wake up, the 5 sense consciousnesses are active once again. Similar to when we reborn, the 5 sense consciousnesses, they rise one after the other. In the same way, when we wake up, maybe the ear consciousness is active fast, whichever is fast, hard to tell. But the point is, let's say 2 arise at the same time. Eye consciousness and body consciousness, they arise at the same time. The immediately preceding condition is the mental consciousness. It's common. It gives rise to both. It's remember I said, like, an immediately preceding condition, a mind that immediately precedes the eye consciousness and the body consciousness. In this case, it enables both the eye consciousness and the body consciousness to perceive something. That ability to perceive something comes from the immediately preceding condition, which perceives something, and therefore that ability is now passed on. Therefore, the immediately preceding condition can be any type of mind that then gives rise to, in the next moment, both an eye consciousness and a body consciousness. But only the body receptors, the receptors that experience warm and cold and roughness and so forth, those receptors, they are the unique sense source that give rise to only the body consciousness, while the retina in the eye, the optical nerve, the visual cortex, they are the unique cause that only gives rise to the the eye consciousness. Then there's the object. You also need the object. Let's say the table is the object. That's not a unique object, because the table causes the eye consciousness and the body consciousness. In that, the table, if you touch the table, then the table causes the experience of the touch of the table, while the color and the shape of the table, and thereby the table itself, it also causes the perception of the table. Although what the different sense consciousnesses perceive, in one case is the texture of the table, the tangibility of the table, in the other case is the shape and color, but it's still inseparable from the table. So therefore the table causes, as an observed object, it causes both the body consciousness and the eye consciousness. So it's not uncommon. It's not an uncommon cause. It's common to both. Therefore, the object is a common condition. It can serve as the condition of the other ones too. Can be, if I say shape and color is different, but if I say the table itself, that is the common condition of both an eye consciousness and a body consciousness. The immediately perceiving condition is also a common condition, but uncommon is the body's source, the sense source. That is unique. In each case, for each of the sense consciousnesses, it is unique. That is what's meant, Barda, when you ask what is a unique cause as opposed to a common, uncommon. What is an uncommon cause? What is a common cause? It's simple. If it doesn't create something else, then only create this one phenomenon, that is an uncommon cause. Okay. In particular, wait, I know what your question is. Let me just finish.
Yeah.
So I hope I know. Well, once I'm done, you can come again. Okay. So you ask, therefore, there are different, there's cause, condition, unique, substantial, and cooperative causes, right? Okay. Therefore, when it comes to the imprints, so you related this in particular, and that's important here. You related this in particular when it comes to keeping an imprint on the mind, for instance. Now, the eye consciousness, sorry, the ignorance, for instance. So the ignorance gives rise to other afflictive emotions. They in turn give rise to certain mental actions. Mental actions that, of course, also accompany verbal actions, yes. But here we're mainly focused on the mental actions. These mental actions, they give rise to an imprint. It's not even that they're the substantial cause of the imprint. It's not clear what the substantial cause of those imprints are. I don't know, actually, to be honest. I have no idea what the substantial cause is. I don't think the mind transforms into that imprint, because the mind continues on as a mind. But it leaves something behind, some residue on the mind. So maybe previous moments of residues, they serve as the substantial cause. But these imprints, their functions now, they're determined by the mind itself. That's, for instance, angry. Let's take anger. So anger, it changes the mind. Anger changes the mind from a peaceful mind to an angry mind. And when the anger is gone, it leaves something behind on the mind. And that is just called, the mind is no longer the same. And that is called, that aspect of it that has changed it is called the imprint. It's not some solid imprint like you visualize something solidly there. It's just a change, a potential that the mind now has. That is not the mind. The mind and the potential are not the same. So every mind has a potential previously to that, and that would be the substantial cause of that potential. But then that potential is mainly changed now by the anger itself, which is why we say now you've left the potential of the anger on the mind. And if that potential performs the function of creating a new rebirth, well, then that's what it does. Therefore, its potential, it's the main cause of this particular karmic imprint that now has the potential to not just lead to a short-term experience, but actually to a rebirth. The main cause was the mind, but it's not a substantial cause. And that imprint then itself, that kind of imprint, that is really just another name for saying something that has this kind of potential. That is called an imprint. That potential in itself does not become a new rebirth, because the new rebirth is actually the mind, the continuum of that mind connecting to another body or to a fertilized egg in the case of a human birth. Now, in that case, it's not that this potential becomes that birth, it doesn't transform into it, but it's still the main cause. It's still the main cause. So when you look at the substantial cause of this conception, well, here it's like this conception, the substantial cause of the mind at the time of conception is a previous moment of mind. The substantial cause of the fertilized egg are the non-fertilized egg of the mother and the semen of the father. Now they have separate substantial causes, and now they come together, but still their substantial causes are different. The mind and the body of a person. However, the main cause, although the substantial cause is a different one, is that karma, the karmic imprint that was mainly responsible for those two coming together. So Varda, did that answer your question? Varda, are you still there?
Varda, you're muted.
Oh yeah, please unmute yourself.
You gave a profound explanation, but my main question was, where do you use the word cause? Because I've heard before substantial, main or unit, a specific cause, and then cooperative causes, and then comes the condition. So that causes make the continuum, but in order for the continuum, like the imprint to be raised, there must be a condition. I didn't hear the condition to be cooperative conditions, but cooperative causes. So I ask if there's a special basic for difference in using the word cause, the label cause, and the label condition in the process.
Well, I thought I explained that already when I initially said everything that is impermanent, let's put it that way, everything that is impermanent is a cause and a condition both. So impermanent and cause and condition are equivalent. Okay. Now, if you place cause and condition together, if you don't just say, well, everything that exists is a cause, sorry, everything that is impermanent is a cause, everything that is impermanent is a condition. Okay. Yeah. But then if you place cause and condition together in that pair, then you speak of a cause as a substantial cause and a condition as a cooperative condition. Cooperative cause, cooperative condition. Here the word condition is somehow used. And now when it comes to the imprint, because I thought you asked also about the imprint here, when you describe an imprint, it is a cause, it is a condition. Okay, but that doesn't tell me that much. Like, I want to know now, is my existence as a human, that is the main result of my karma I accumulated in the past. Is that karma I accumulated in the past a cause of my existence now? Yes. Is it a condition of my existence now? Yes. Now, is it the substantial cause or the cooperative condition? Well, it's not the substantial cause. It's not the substantial cause, because it's not that this imprint or even the action itself I performed in the past, that didn't transform to become myself now. Also not the imprint. The imprint didn't transform to become the condition now. Therefore, by implication, it can only be a cooperative condition. If it's a cause, it's one of those two, a substantial cause or a cooperative condition. Therefore, my existence as a human now, although its main cause was the imprint in the past, also the action of the past, but neither the action nor the imprint are the substantial causes of my existence, but
That I
there are the
understand.
causes, there are the conditions, but not the substantial cause, only the cooperative condition. Okay, Vara, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, you're welcome. So you see, it's quite complicated. It's quite complicated, and the more you learn about it, it makes sense just from the point of view of their functions. Okay. And there's another cause, of course, that comes in there. There's something called the, what's it called now? I forget. I had it this morning. It's from the Pramanavartika, the indispensable cause. There's something called the indispensable cause. There's a further kind of explanation that is really important when it comes to rebirth, as in like an indispensable cause can be a substantial cost. Well, a substantial cost is always an indispensable cost, but a cooperative condition can be one, which kind of means that whichever condition the cause is in always has an effect on the result. So if the cause is strong and healthy, the result will be, and if the cause is not strong and healthy, the result will not be, as an example. So the quality of the cause always has an effect on the result. That's something you usually don't hear when you listen to the Lamrim, etc. This is something you learn as part of the Pramanavartika in the context of past and future lives. Now, to give you a simple example, a farmer is the cooperative condition of the seed, but it's not the indispensable cause, in that if the farmer is healthy or he's sick, it doesn't have an influence on the apple tree. I mean, it's like if he feels full of power and strength and he puts it in the seed, well, maybe if he's really strong and he puts it really deep down, but I mean, just allowing for the seed to drop into the earth, whether he's strong or not, has no influence on the apple tree. Whereas the warmth, the temperature, or the light, the quality of the light, that has an effect. It's a cooperative condition of the seed, of the sprout. Only the seed is the substantial cause, and in that case, as a substantial cause, of course, its transformation has an influence on the result. In that, the greater the quality of the seed, the better the quality. The greater the quality of the result, obviously. But there are also cooperative conditions, the quality of which has an influence on the result. Therefore, with karma, it's definitely an indispensable cause of our experiences, in that the quality of that karma, the power, if it's powerful, there's a powerful result. So in terms of just an ordinary experience versus a whole rebirth. In one case, the action was so powerful, it caused more than just an experience. It caused an entire life, actually. So in that sense, we can say it's the indispensable cause. Now, this idea, it is interesting and it is important to a certain degree, but I guess if you don't understand it in the context of causes and conditions, it's not going to make such a huge difference. And of course, why do we learn about all this? In particular, substantial cause and cooperative condition, of course, in the context of the mind. Mind can only be caused by mind. So that establishes, for instance, rebirth. Secondly, main cause and so forth. Why is that important? Well, in particular, what causes our experiences? Are those other people, as we usually believe, the external world to be responsible for all our situation? No, we'll understand it's the internal. It's our mind that is mainly responsible for all our experiences, even though our experiences are not the substantial result of our mind. Okay, so this part, it's complicated in all its details, but we don't need to know all the details, just the rough working of that. Now, that is extremely important. And in that way, we also come to understand that every cause is a continuum, every result is a continuum, and every result is the result of many, many causes. So therefore, when we say the question that arises is often, why does a particular karma ripen? What do you need? Is it only the karma? No, that is the main cause. But you also need a certain state of mind that triggers that. And definitely you need a type of attachment for at least mental karma to ripen. And in the case of course, throwing karma, definitely craving and grasping, you need those. But you also need the external. If you have the karma to die in an airplane crash, then you need at least an airplane. Or if you have accumulated the karma to be insulted by someone, you need someone who actually sets out to insult you. Now, all these causes and conditions have to come together. And we're not saying that another person's insult is not a cause, but it's not the main cause. It's not the main cause. And we usually try to remove a secondary cause, maybe the other person. Try to remove that person and see that person as responsible, totally ignoring it was the karma that actually created mainly the circumstance. So this distinction helps us to make more sense of our own world in that we observe karma. Karma is a way to practice the Dharma actually on an initial level. When you think of what comes first, ignorance, then come other afflictions, and then formative actions, karma. Now, the main cause, of course, is ignorance. We need to deal with that. And if we can't deal with that, at least with the other afflictive emotions, right? And of those, we need to deal with our attachment. But if we can't deal with all our attachment, especially attachment to the self, at least we should deal with the other types of attachment, and in particular with aversion and hatred. And if we can't deal with that, at least we should deal with karmic actions. Karmic actions in that, well, if we can't stop our anger to a certain degree, but don't allow the mind to run wild after anger, to plan to kill someone and harm someone, these karmic actions of the body, of the mind, and possibly, of course, of the speech and the body. So we refrain initially from harmful actions, unethical actions, harmful actions of body and speech. And then we deal with the actions of the mind that were induced by the afflictive emotions. And then we further go into anger and attachment towards external objects. And then we deal with attachment to the self. And then we deal with eliminating the ignorance. That is like, we can't start right away dealing with the subtlest type of, we can of course think of emptiness right from the beginning, but it won't be as effective unless we take care of the other changes, starting with working with karma. Okay, now this is what the 12 links of course teach us more obviously, but of course implied in that is also we need to remove ignorance. Of course, on the way to that, first deal with physical and verbal karma first, then with mental karma, then with anger and jealousy, etc., then with attachment to the self, and then with emptiness to remove ignorance. Okay, so especially when it comes to attachment, like I said early on, we can already work with our attachment without removing the misapprehension of reality. And one way of doing it is going through the 12 links, for instance. I was tempted to do this, but I didn't do it. When I ask you to meditate on this life being the life in which name and form and so forth took place, and to visualize in a previous life to be someone else, I almost thought, I was tempted, but I didn't do it because I thought it makes it too complicated. I thought to ask you to meditate on yourself being a man if you're a woman in this life, and vice versa. Because that again helps us to think, when we strongly feel I'm a woman and we strongly identify with that, or strongly identify with being a man, which sometimes leads to extreme views with regard to the other gender or the other sex, then it's helpful to do this meditation and think, well, we've been men and women both in the past, so to just visualize being someone else, and it loosens a little bit that attachment. Of course, compassion and love also loosen our attachment, because instead of being just concerned with my happiness, I'm concerned with the happiness of others. Thinking of impermanence also helps to loosen that attachment. And you see, certain people react to the crisis, the corona crisis, very strongly, not because they lose their job or not because, no, it's mainly because things are different. This attachment to things being a certain way, and when they're suddenly no longer that way, oh, it's deeply disturbing. It leads to a lot of fear. That is a sign of attachment. If you can loosen that a little bit and be more in touch with impermanence, then whatever happens, it's okay. The sun shines, it's okay. It rains, it's okay. It's foggy, it's okay. It snows, it's okay. There is a pandemic, it's okay. There isn't one, it's okay. So whatever happens, therefore, watching karma, of course, is initially very important for our own experiences in the future in particular, but also for now, right now, anything that can happen right now. We have to loosen our attachment. We have to loosen that. There's no way around it, to be able right now in a certain crisis to be able to act appropriately. And there's certain means. There's definitely the idea of impermanence, putting ourselves into another person's shoe, meditating on the possibility we were someone else in the previous life and we will be someone else in the next life, to let go of this is my body, this is me. So these are all different tools. So this meditation on the 12 links holds all this. And once we do the meditation on love and compassion, doing these 12 links, that will help us. But of course, we need to, of course, deal with the ignorance, because the one chain that its removal determines the removal of all the other links, of course, is ignorance. Okay. Now, I want to introduce to you something that you may be familiar with if you already learned about the 12 links. If you haven't, it's easy to understand after we've done what we've done so far. Because there are actually 4 versions of the 12 links, except if we, well, 4 versions in the sense I said there's a conventional version, perceiving all these links from the point of view of the conventional basis. I've already mentioned there's an ultimate basis where we understand that ignorance doesn't exist inherently, formative actions don't exist inherently. Okay, leaving aside that, but just taking the conventional aspect, ignorance as existent conventional phenomenon, etc., all the 12 links, then there are 4 versions. 4 versions in that these 4 versions are actually extensive versions of the Four Noble Truth. The Four Noble Truth describing, well, the suffering condition and the causes of the suffering condition. Well, they're explained in those 12 links, right? So you have certain links that describe the origin of suffering. So what is it? Ignorance, formative actions. And then you have the results of those, which includes consciousness, the 3rd link, which is the consciousness that holds the origin, and that's already a suffering. It's a truth of suffering. And then further, you have the other links, name and form, etc. So name and form is a result of the origin of karma and afflictions, and therefore it is a truth of the origin. And in that way you can check, is it one of the two, a karma or karmic imprint, a karma or an affliction? Then it's part of the first truth, the second truth, the truth of the origin. And if it's a result of those, such as birth and aging and death, well, then it is a truth of suffering. So in that way, you can look at the 12 links also from the point of view, which category does it belong to? Is it an origin or is it a result? Okay. Now there's that aspect. But then there are 2 sequences. There is a forward sequence and there's a reverse sequence. Now you can look at the 12 links in the way we've done it. The forward version is ignorance gives rise to, or due to ignorance, formative actions arise. Due to formative actions, consciousness arises. Due to consciousness, name and form arises. That is the forward sequence. That is the forward sequence. Then there's a reverse sequence, which is going from the back, saying aging and death. Link number 12, aging and death are produced in dependence on birth. Birth is produced in dependence on existence. Existence is produced in dependence on grasping, right? So if you meditate on those, now you may think, oh, I don't need to meditate on those. It's so easy to understand. But trust me, whenever you have that thought and you still make yourself meditate on them, you will always have a different understanding. And you know, I learned this from Geshe Kelsang, in that he sometimes makes a statement about something and it blows my mind. I go, wow, how did he come up with that? When he says it, it makes perfect sense. It suddenly makes perfect sense. But I didn't come up with that at all. And I always wonder, how does he come up with that? And over the years, I realized he meditates on aspects that I like to ignore. The forward sequence, we just did it. But now to do the reverse sequence, it's kind of so easy. It doesn't seem like necessary to do it. But he always does it. He does every single little meditation. And sometimes he then talks about, he says, I meditated on that, and that was the result I had. And I realized I shouldn't have ignored this. It seems so insignificant. I want to meditate on emptiness and on something profound and bodhicitta and all this fancy stuff. This is easy. I understand it right away. Why should I meditate on it? But it made me understand that however insignificant it seems, if I think about it in this just ordinary intellectual way versus totally focusing on it, and it doesn't even mean you have to sit in the meditation posture and all that, that definitely helps. But even if you just very focused, think about it and take it personally, you gain an insight you can never gain otherwise. And this is where I believe Geshe-la's insights come from. He never thinks about things on an intellectual level, maybe initially to gain an understanding, but then he brings it to a personal level and he gains insights that you can only gain if you take it personally. And this is where I believe his insights come from, besides the fact he's really bright and all that and really special. But I definitely came to the conclusion that his great insights come from the fact he doesn't ignore any topic of meditation. He goes into it and gains further insights and then shares them with us. And we go, wow. Well, because we didn't have that insight, but it made perfect sense. Therefore, here, the reverse version, it's like, I'm sure most people ignore it. I mean, including myself. You do the forward version, yes, but then backwards to go over that backwards. So I want to do that with you, since we may only do it. Have we got time left? No, shoot. Well, yeah, we do. In the afternoon, we do. Yes, we do. So to have that version, and we're almost done before we come to compassion. We got another 3 hours to go, so no problem. But let me just say this much. What is the purpose of the reverse sequence? It helps us to understand true suffering. So aging and death are produced by birth. Birth is produced in dependence on existence. That is this activated karma. Existence is produced in dependence on grasping. So that, it says, it helps us to understand true suffering. The forward sequence, due to ignorance, there's formative actions. Due to formative actions, there's consciousness. That helps us to recognize the need to free ourselves from the true origin of suffering. Because here the emphasis is more on the cause, right? Ignorance gives rise to this. It's more emphasis on the cause. So it helps us to recognize the need to free ourselves from ignorance, right? Then with regard to the reverse sequence, you start with the result. So aging and death are produced in dependence on birth. Birth is produced in dependence on existence and so forth. Taking you all the way to ignorance, there's more emphasis on true suffering. Okay, so true suffering is more, and again, you see the result is true suffering. And when you start with the result, true suffering is more emphasized. When you start with the cause, ignorance giving rise to the rest, then the origin is more emphasized. Okay, so it helps you to understand better the origin. And because you also understand what it gives rise to, the need to free yourself from that origin. Okay. Now, that is the afflicted version of the 12 links. Then there's a purified version. Now, before I stop, the purified version, that is just saying everything, meditating in the way we did, and we'll do the meditation. I want to do it just for the sake of having done it, at least as a group. Okay. Well, I may not explain it now because otherwise we meditate too much in the next session. So I'll give you the purified version in the next session. And we've done the forward version, and I'll start with the reverse version, the way you've done it, applying it to yourself as an animal, etc. Now I'll just take you all the way backwards, and we need a little time for that, so I'll do it the next session. Not as much time as we did for the forward version, because you were a little bit familiar with it already. You just tap into what you've done previously. Now you just do it the other way around and see whether it has an effect on you. Okay. And then, of course, there's the purified version, which we need to go through, because the whole point of this exercise is to understand we want to free ourselves from cyclic existence. So to do that aspect, to go through that aspect, and of course then to not having applied it to ourselves, having understood how ourselves are trapped in that, the last part is, and that's the last session for today, the last hour and a half, using it to meditate on love and compassion for other sentient beings. Although traditionally they're not explained that way, but of course, being part of the Mahayana tradition, so huge emphasis, great emphasis needs to be put on that not only do we understand sentient beings suffer right now, but they continuously create the causes for being reborn unwantedly, or in a place, in a situation they don't want, and where they have new problems and create new problems for themselves in the future. So also to understand that, to make our motivation, that is bodhicitta, more effective, more powerful. And the more powerful it gets, the more it has the ability to change our mind, bring more peace to our mind, but also widen our perspective, which allows for understanding to set in. Okay, it just widens our horizon, and with a wider horizon, wisdom can be more effective. Great. Now we got 3 minutes left. We could do 5 minutes more because I did it previously, but never mind. No, the 5 minutes, we already worked on that. Okay, 2 minutes left before we take the break. Am I right that we got 2 minutes left? I'm not getting confused, right? Yes. Okay, great. So let's spend those last 2 minutes dedicating for the break, dedicating whatever positive potential we have accumulated. Talking about, well, I talked the whole time, but anyway, talking about these aspects of the 12 links, answering some of your questions, and in preparation for our meditation in the afternoon. So now let's dedicate all this, of course, towards our own enlightenment. May this become a cause for us to widen our perspective, so that more wisdom can develop in our mind, more love and compassion can develop, so that eventually we attain the enlightened state of a Buddha. Using our day-to-day experiences to become causes for our own enlightenment, our own Buddhahood, so that we're of greatest benefit to all sentient beings. This is the long-term goal, but even in the meantime, may all our actions also have an effect on everyone else around us. May it help other people, other beings who are sick, like Tali Lubin and everyone else who's sick, animals, humans, and so forth, to get better soon. And in particular, may it help other sentient beings to find relief from their endless mental sufferings. So let's dedicate in that way. Okay, great. Now we'll take a break and start with a meditation the way I described. And then the last session, as I said, will be on bodhicitta, so you know what to expect. And enjoy a break.
Thank you.
You're welcome. If you have more questions, you can post them, or I'll give you an opportunity to ask them. Or someone asked something, I'll answer that later. Okay.
Thank you.